Okay, guys, this one is a little bit of an update, obviously, from today. But given that we didn't have the Tradingview stream from yesterday actually record again, this seems to obviously be quite a significant issue with Tradingview capturing these streams. We had some good interaction on yesterday's one, and today, obviously. I thought I'd better go back over some of it for the people who were watching the stream on catch up. I didn't actually record yesterday. I'm actually away for a couple of days, so kind of just on the laptop right now. So bear with me. Obviously, if there's any kind of other issues, I'll upload this and stick this onto YouTube. So jumping straight into one of the things that I wanted to mention was basically the games. And what you'll see from moves like this is that we've gone relatively sideways. We've then got a spike up. We're quite likely to go relatively sideways and see another spike down. This is just what you'd expect in an Elliott wave 4 move, and you have to bear in mind that that's where I think we are, obviously on the bigger time frame. So if you go back to my post around the 18th of March when I was calling the top at 62,500 for Bitcoin with a drop down to 30k, you'll see some of the logic there, as well as obviously the Elliott roadmap that I wrote on the 26th of March this year. You'll see obviously some of the logic there. What I'll do is I'll post those links into the stream chat, and I'll stick them underneath in the YouTube video as well. So obviously you have to keep in mind that where we are and why I think we are where we are. So to start with, right, on a shorter time frame, I think we're just going to get quite choppy, quite messy. If I put the other advanced get tool on just to show you this a second. So where we are in terms of the monthly moves at the moment, I think obviously we are still on the way up to a 3 on the monthly. Okay, so I think for me the 3 is probably likely to be 85,000, around this kind of area, potentially up a little bit higher. We might see a little poke above 100,000 for that. But on the assumption that this is obviously a monthly 3, now I'm on the weekly chart at the moment just to show you. Obviously, what I was anticipating was a move up, obviously, to the 3, a pull back from 3 to 4, and the expectation then of obviously a bigger move up, for this 5 move on the weekly, giving us a 3 monthly overall. Down on the daily, we were obviously seeing from the all-time high here, we were actually seeing the first 0 to A, the A obviously back to B, the B down to the C. So that's given us the 3 wave move that I'd obviously called on the rocket post. But there's a little bit more logic to this now because we've actually gone sideways, not given any kind of clarity in terms of direction. But what you have to remember is in a corrective move like this, you'd actually expect to see this remain bearish until it's not. And I keep stressing and emphasizing this in our Discord channel, especially that ultimately what we're saying is that we are currently in this corrective phase. Don't assume otherwise until you've got confirmation that you're actually going now impulsively to the bullish side. And right now, this isn't looking anything like a bullish move up on the impulsive side at all. So what I'll do is I'll jump back over to the Tradingview charts. And then what I'll do is I'll explain now a little bit of what I was covering yesterday. So in yesterday's stream, I pulled this out on the weekly time frame. And what I was actually telling you before I put this in, before I go out on this, I have to come across to the other Bitcoin chart. So on this, what I was actually looking at was on the weekly time frame. Okay, you use the Weiss wave indicator, and we've got a couple of different Weiss tools. I'm going to use ours on the volume and the Weiss. Now, when you look at trading Elliott waves, or when you're looking for a bias, I really simplify Elliott. Although people like to trade the ins and outs and the zigzags and the flats, none of that stuff really bothers me. I'm actually looking for something quite simplistic in terms of the approach. Now, I bought my first Bitcoin back in 2011, so I got into kind of what it was on a technology side. I'm actually a technology investor. We run a VC fund, but the longs and shorts of this particular thing was I didn't see any real institutional money. So although we had this nice real kind of hype, it wasn't until midway through this hype that we actually started to see, family offices. We started to see it from a technology investment perspective. So for me, clear as day, anything prior to this kind of move was actually what I would regard as just kind of white noise. Okay, so that's kind of rubbish for me sitting over there. So I'm now on the assumption I'm looking for the first kind of real move. Now, if you start thinking of institutional money, composite man, you start thinking of the big picture. The first real move for me was, this was intent. Okay, so we had some intent. We then obviously come on back down, and we push back down quite heavy. We push back down heavy again here. So for me, I'm starting to see, this as what I would class as the genesis move in real terms. And therefore, on this assumption, we have to take this as obviously a 3 move, okay? Which means if I come back and we look at the red on the white here, I'm seeing this as the 2. I've covered this in a couple of streams again anyway, guys. And then obviously the first major green move being obviously the 1, okay? So if we were to take this swing low here and we were to come to this high, that for me is as clear as day, the first 1 institutional money, and that is giving us obviously this particular move, from inside this, okay? We then had the 2, so the 2 pull back. If this was obviously the 1, the 2 pull back, I'm going to use this as the base, which is giving us then the 2. So inside this, again, clear as day, that's giving me my 2. Now, we're obviously going to get smaller moves on the daily, etc., etc. Then the longs and shorts of this for me is that we have to assume that from there to there is obviously the 3. So I'm going to run some fib extensions and all that kind of stuff, but that really isn't, what I'm concerned about right now. It's the bias for me more than anything. I'm now looking at obviously the pullback 4. So from the all-time high, we still obviously in this red zone. It's still obviously bearish. So I'm not really bothered about the kind of key levels. What I'm actually looking for is the assumption that we are 4, like I said, until we're not. So I can get Fibonacci extensions from the 2 obviously up to 3, and then use the retracements on the Fibonacci moves to give me, a 38, a 50, a 618. Like I said, at the moment, guys, that's really not what's interesting to me. This is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for now a bullish impulsive move, which will obviously be the new 0 to 1, a pullback obviously to the 2, and it'll be this area that I'll be interested in taking a long-term long position as a whole. So I wanted to cover this because this is something that we discussed yesterday. Obviously, I can't remember every single aspect of what I was covering yesterday, but I know that there was one particular question and point. Obviously, the guy was on the chat as I was playing the stream out. So the fact that it didn't save, I wanted to cover this for the others as well. So when you're looking at the kind of key levels, we obviously get the move 0, 1, obviously back 2, up 3, 4, and 5. Now, the quickest thing is, like I said, in terms of doing the extensions and the retracements, what you're looking for is on the first move, we're looking for from a 0 to a 1 and then back down to the move. A lot of people bring this back down to the 0. The only reason I like this back to the 2 is that's actually the depth of the pullback. So what we're actually looking for is a 1618 usually on the 3 move, from obviously the 2 being the base. And then from there, you tend to find that 5 finishes off at the 2618. That's not a golden rule. That's not set in stone. That's just something that happens quite frequent. Obviously, crypto is overhyped, so you might get a few different moves and a few different plays in this. You might get a 4-6-1-8 or a 5-6-1-8, but they do tend to favor the 6-1-8s in terms of the extensions. You have to remember all of this is based on human psychology and the emotions attached. So it makes a lot of sense as to why they would finish incomplete at these fib levels. What then you do tend to find is obviously on the retracement, so from a 2 to a 3, you do tend to find that the 4 comes back probably 38%. It can easily be obviously 50%, but quite rarely it goes below the 618, right? So in an ideal world, what we're saying is you've got a technical zone which obviously fits something like this. You'll see this in the roadmap on one of the previous posts that I've done. Like I said, I think it was around the 26th of March, the actual roadmap. And if you are relatively new to Elliott, in terms of the Elliott wave theory, I've actually posted a couple. Let me just find the actual chronology, education chronology. So if you come across to this one on July the 8th, you'll see I've put a lot of the educational content that I've put through Tradingview actually into one post. So scroll on down and you will see that we actually have two posts on the Elliott basics, which explain some of what I've just covered, and obviously the useful tricks on the other side of it. So if you look through these posts, you'll obviously get a grasp of some of the educational content. But in terms of where we are on the Elliott side, I kind of feel that right now, if I was to draw this back on the new roadmap, we probably somewhere along this level here. So I'll make this a little bit bigger. We're probably somewhere along this level on the weekly move. So we've got a weekly 3. We're down obviously towards the weekly 4. We're probably not moving back from 4 up to 5 yet. So for me, this would be the assumption. And like I said, there was a full roadmap that I'd actually put. I tell you, let me see if I can find it. It might make a bit of sense to show this on the stream. So what I'll do is I will open up another Tradingview tab. I will come into my settings, and I think it was around page 6 or 7, going back, like I said, to March. So it's worth just showing you this before closing out this particular stream. Like I said, I am away, so I'm limited in terms of the equipment around me at the moment. Let me just find this one post, and this will make a little bit of sense as to where we are on the actual roadmap. So this was the rocket post. This ultimately was the move I was calling down to 30k. That obviously happened a little bit faster than I'd first planned, but obviously played out nonetheless. And then I think back to 5 then, if that's the case. Then obviously the last thing was on this particular roadmap, you will see here, you'll see some of the logic that I've just gone through in terms of the Elliott, that we'd obviously come on down from 3 weekly. The assumption obviously of the monthly 3 overall. Ignore the numbers, this was drawn freehand here on the right hand side. And then obviously the idea of the drop down, as you can see, going back, like I said, the 26th of March, you can see the general idea was that we're looking to fall down into this range, a shallow and a deep forecast for the Elliott move, to obviously push on up. So I know this one's a little bit longer than my usual streams for the Bitcoin updates, but this was obviously covering some of the logic that we went over there yesterday. So obviously that was the general idea. That's where we are as a whole. I think shorter term, like I said, we're going to get moves. I mentioned yesterday in our Discord channel that we're actually likely to see, a 31, a 29, a 32, 26, a 33. And the general idea is obviously on the shorter term time frames, the composite man is going to be playing these games, and these games are not going to make anything easy for retail traders. And that's really what it's designed to do. They're actually accumulating bigger picture to obviously take this higher. So it's just a question of, where is the bottom? I really don't care. Ultimately what I'm looking for is an impulsive move. And, although this looks impulsive, it's not that impulsive, bigger picture. If you look at where we are right now, that really doesn't give me any confidence in taking this long just yet. But on the flip side, I'm not really interested in taking this short because I'm looking to trade with the trend rather than against the trend. So at the moment, sat on my hands, pretty much the same, and that's where we are. So like I said, hopefully guys, this was recorded fine on Tradingview this time. It'll be uploaded on to YouTube, and I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Cheers.